But march! March on!
This weekend we're going back in time to 1685 and the Battle of Sedgemoor. With me are Monmouth's rebels, hot-footing it through Bridgewater, about to clash with the mighty Royal Army, led by a Churchill. So why, 3 years on, did this first famous Churchill abandon the King of England? It's 1688, and John Churchill, the future Duke of Marlborough, will help to change the course of British history with a bold decision.
It is heroic, and he believes that it's a decision right for the country. He, as an individual, was a Great Britain.
Churchill was to become a truly Great Britain. However, before he achieved this greatness, on 2 occasions, both in Somerset, he would take controversial steps that set him on the road to power.
He was looking to his own self-interest. Everyone's entitled to one act of treachery in their lives.
It was a time of upheaval, shifting loyalties, and deep religious conflict.
Rest your muskets. Just drop the musket down.
Steve Carter is a fanatic, obsessed with this riotous era, but more importantly, obsessed with one general, John Churchill. Churchill really was the man among men, wasn't he, at that time?
He was probably and it still is one of the best military generals we've ever had in British history.
The 17th century was a turbulent time, and Somerset was in the eye of the storm. In Churchill's day, King James II was on the throne, a monarch who was stirring up resentment. James was promoting his Catholicism in a staunchly Protestant England. It was here at the Battle of Sedgemoor in deepest rural Somerset that the young John Churchill took his first steps towards greatness. Here in 1685, he proved loyal to the king by fighting the Duke of Monmouth, who was rallying a rebel army against James.
At the time of the Monmouth Rebellion, certainly Churchill was an up-and-coming general. He was effectively second in command of the Royal Army. And the Battle of Sedgemoor was where he really shone and stood out. Right, have a care!
Steve's so obsessed with Churchill that he's recreating the turning point in this man's career.
Front rank shall kneel.
Steve leads the Godolphin Regiment, a group dedicated to reenacting the bloody conflicts of the 17th century.
And you've got a little short, stimpy gun, what do you expect?
But I was that close up before.
A stimpy gun.
Port your muskets.
And are this little lot under your command?
Yes.
OK, so shouldn't you be keeping your eye on them?
No, I've got an able lieutenant at the end.
I've been demoted, sir.
Well, captain lieutenant. Just get on with it.
He's a lieutenant, sir.
Just get on with it.
Yes, sir.
Oh, you've delegated?
Yeah.
Because they are about to handle lethal weapons.
They are, yeah. Present!
Give fire!
Oh!
So this is an account of the...
David Seborn is also keeping Churchill's memory alive at the Blake Museum in Bridgewater. What kind of character was he? A moderate individual?
All that's written about him suggests that in his personal life, he was a caring man. He had a lovely family, but he was an arch politician. Some people might say dissembler, but then that again was the spirit of the time. The plan was to attack in the dark. I've got something here that'll show it more clearly, but if you just flick the switch.
David's pride and joy is this fine model of the Battle of Sedgemoor. Aha, bingo, we have light. But this actually wasn't what happened because the battle was in the middle of the night.
You wouldn't have seen it like that,
Right.
but this is a little of what would have been happening in the murk there.
This was the Monmouth rebel army, stealthily encroaching in an attempt to defeat King James.
By all accounts, the army left Bridgewater in about 11 o'clock at night and crept through country lanes.
So over there, 318 years ago this weekend, it would have been the rebels, would it?
The rebels would have come in from down that way. Churchill's men would have been camped in this area here, along these fields, and Churchill himself was staying actually in the inn in the middle of town.
Yeah, I couldn't see him muddying himself in a tent.
You wouldn't, no.
There's a pistol shot, and where we don't know.
Churchill's royal troops dragged themselves up and into their battle dress.
And immediately afterwards, a trooper of horses riding up and down the royal lines shouting, beat the drum, for the enemy has come." Churchill is on hand straight away.
So at the dead of night, Churchill's in command, but that wasn't the original plan, was it?
No, Feversham was in command, but he was asleep at the time. And by all accounts, he was a heavy sleeper as well.
Oh, so canny old Churchill find this opportune moment to establish his name on the battlefield.
Indeed he did, and really for the first time in his career.
It's pitch black, chaos, it's noise, smoke. And what Churchill then does, he commits the 2 regiments at the far flank of the Royal Army and moves them across the other far flank.
So outsmarts the team.
Outsmarts them.
Churchill's cool head in the heat of the battle showed a military genius in the making.
Bit by bit, the rebel formations are cut to pieces, and after standing quite bravely for an hour or two, they flee.
The royal troops were victorious. Churchill had saved the day, and his king. Three years later, the rebellion brutally crushed. King James, drunk on power, forced his Catholicism on Protestant England. But for the Protestant Churchill, this was one step too far.
Sir, since men are seldom suspected of sincerity when they act...
There's no doubt that his was an agonising decision. There was a new pretender to the English throne, the Dutchman, William of Orange. Would Churchill gain by changing sides?
Charitable interpretation of my actions.
As an opportunist, he could expect no further advancement from James, whereas if he changed sides, he might continue to advance.
Why not? Why wouldn't James promote him further?
Because he was too busy promoting Catholics.
So it was his religion that was the crux of the matter.
Certainly in the letter that he wrote to James before he defected, that is exactly what he said. You then have to draw your own conclusions to what extent personal ambition and opportunism came into it.
So the die was cast. Churchill defected and, taking his men from their camp in Wiltshire, headed onwards to the glorious revolution.
They rode non-stop 50 miles from Salisbury, leaving James's army to join William.
They ended up back in Somerset, in the town of Crewkerne. So David, what exactly are we doing here in Crewkerne?
They paused here at Crewkerne for a few hours just to ensure that William would receive him, which in due course he did. It really knocked the heart out of James. He had no stomach for a fight after that. James just gave up and left.
And William, of course, with Mary, took the throne.
Indeed.
So in other words, X marks the spot where Churchill came full political circle.
Yes, this was the biggest political decision of his life, probably the biggest single decision.
And does that make him, in the wake of that decision, a traitor or a hero in your eyes?
He left a letter where he explained to James that he had to stand by his Protestant religion.
A traitor or a hero, David?
But he also was looking to his own self-interest, as indeed were a lot of other people at the time. Whether he was a traitor or a hero, well, you pay your money and you take your choice, don't you?
Okay, have a care. There's always one missing, isn't there?
And looking at Churchill as a character, you know, goody or baddie, do you think?
It's a decision that he's taken, and he believes that it's a decision right for the country, and it's going to save the country from another battle.
Or right for
war.
Churchill.
It's all right for Churchill and it's all right for the population. But ultimately he becomes one of the great British commanders. He works his way up through the ranks from ensign through to being general of the armies of Europe.
You're almost eulogising there, Steve.
Well, I just feel that he's neglected. He's one of the British generals and the British personalities that have been neglected. I mean, he should have been one of the top 10 British people. Prepare to stand. Stand. Your right hand's about.
You can see Steve and his men relive the battle, free of charge this weekend, Saturday and Sunday at Weston's Island in Somerset. Next week on Inside Out. Weston Supermare today, the West End tomorrow. We follow the dreams of the chorus line. Plus, the hospital whistleblower now exiled in Spain. And how the hunters are becoming the hunted. So join us for 3 more stories next week.